for a while. I believed that's the kind of love I had.
Casino wasn't just a gangster movie, it was a violent love letter to greed, obsession, and decay. It was Martin Scorsese dissecting the American dream with a razor blade. Behind the glitter of Vegas neon, there was real danger, real betrayal, and a film set that often mirrored the chaos on screen. From exploding stunts gone wrong to raging battles with the MPAA, this production was pure adrenaline. These are 20 weird facts about Casino that reveal the madness behind the masterpiece. A movie that nearly got an X rating. When Scorsese submitted Casino to the MPAA, they almost gave it the dreaded X rating for violence. The infamous Vice scene where Joe Pesci uses a pen as a weapon was considered too graphic. Scorsese and editor Thelma Schoonmaker trimmed frames by fractions of a second just to pass. The changes were microscopic but essential. Every cut was a negotiation between art and censorship. What audiences didn't realize was that the original cut was far bloodier. The final version kept the energy but toned down the gore just enough to sneak by. It wasn't compromise, it was survival in a system terrified of raw brutality. Casino's violence still burned through the screen even after being sliced to ribbons. Sharon Stone's audition was pure chaos. Sharon Stone almost lost her role as Ginger. Scorsese wanted someone who could be seductive, fragile, and explosive at once, but Stone refused multiple auditions. When he finally cornered her at a restaurant, she exploded with energy, delivering a performance so raw that diners stopped eating. She didn't just act, she detonated. Scorsese knew instantly she was the one. What's shocking is that she improvised most of her screen tests. None of it was scripted. The fear, the tears, the rage, all real. She later said she felt like Ginger lived inside her. When the film wrapped, she needed therapy to separate from the role. It wasn't just acting, it was possession. The real Casino let them film only at night. The Tangiers in Casino was actually the Riviera Hotel in Las Vegas. The real Casino allowed filming, but only after 1 a.m. and before 10 a.m. when gamblers were gone. That meant the crew worked vampire hours for months. They couldn't interrupt real money flow. Sometimes extras were replaced by real gamblers who didn't know they were in a movie. Dealers were real too. The authenticity was astonishing but brutal on the cast's sleep cycles. Sharon Stone said she lived in darkness so long she forgot what daylight looked like. It wasn't a movie set. It was a nocturnal dream drenched in cigarette smoke and exhaustion. The realism came at a heavy cost. De Niro had 70 costume changes. Robert De Niro's character, Sam Rothstein, had more wardrobe changes than any character in Scorsese history. Over 70 suits were custom-made in different fabrics, colors, and patterns. Each outfit symbolized his control obsession and descent into paranoia. Costume designer Rita Ryak built an entire character through silk and stitching. De Niro personally approved every tie and cufflink. He even requested exact matching shoes to complete his manic precision. Every outfit told a story of wealth morphing into isolation. What audiences didn't see was that De Niro kept notes for each scene linking his mood to the color he wore. Casino wasn't just about gambling, it was about dressing like a god while falling apart. Real mobsters visited the set. During production, real Las Vegas mob figures showed up uninvited. Some came to watch, some came to intimidate. Scorsese and De Niro were under surveillance by the FBI at the time. Agents even warned them about certain visitors. One night, crew members noticed 2 unmarked cars outside the casino. Scorsese later said they weren't sure who was watching, the government or the mob. Joe Pesci's portrayal of Nicky Santoro was so accurate that actual gang associates thought he'd stolen their moves. What audiences didn't know is that every scene filmed in Vegas was a tightrope walk between authenticity and real danger. It wasn't just inspired by the mob was right there. The opening explosion nearly went wrong. The film's unforgettable opening shot at Sam Rothstein's car exploding in slow motion was real fire, real glass, and real risk. Scorsese refused to fake it entirely. They rigged a Cadillac with pyrotechnics and placed De Niro's double inside seconds before ignition. But during rehearsal, one explosive charge misfired, sending debris flying into camera equipment. No one was hurt, but everyone was shaken. To capture the slow-motion effect, Scorsese used 3 high-speed cameras filming from different angles. The explosion's beauty came from danger itself. What looks like cinematic poetry on screen was a carefully controlled accident that almost went out of control. The moment defined the entire film. Grace born from chaos. Pesci's character was based on a real killer. Joe Pesci's Nicky Santoro wasn't fiction. He was based on Tony Spilotro, a brutal enforcer who ruled Vegas with blood. Spilotro's reputation was legendary, unpredictable, violent, unstoppable. Scorsese studied FBI files and eyewitness accounts to craft his character. Pesci avoided direct imitation, but channeled the real man's volatility. When he shot the infamous cornfield scene, he asked Scorsese how real it should feel. The answer was chilling. Make it hurt. Crew members said the silence after the final take was haunting. Not applause, not relief, just shock. Spilotro's real death mirrored the movie almost exactly. Art didn't imitate life. It relived it. That's why the violence feels like a confession, not a performance. The script was written like a documentary. Unlike most crime dramas, Casino was structured like a nonfiction chronicle. Scorsese and writer Nicholas Pileggi built it from real FBI reports, court documents, and interviews. Every line of narration came from research. They didn't write dialogue first, they wrote evidence. The dual voiceover from De Niro and Pesci was inspired by mob surveillance tapes where criminals casually explained their crimes. That clinical tone made the film feel authentic and terrifying. The structure wasn't traditional storytelling, it was forensic storytelling. What audiences didn't realize was that nearly 70% of the film was built before the screenplay even existed. Scorsese wasn't directing fiction. He was documenting corruption disguised as entertainment. Sharon Stone collapsed during a scene. The emotional breakdown scene where Ginger screams at Rothstein in the desert wasn't acting. Sharon Stone fainted after multiple takes. She had been filming in 120-degree heat, wearing layers of fur and makeup. Scorsese kept rolling when she tried to keep performing through exhaustion. When she collapsed, they rushed her to an air-conditioned trailer. Later, she returned to finish the scene trembling but determined. That performance earned her a Golden Globe and an Oscar nomination. The tears were real, the rage was real, and the collapse was real. It wasn't stage drama, it was a human body pushed to its edge for art. The desert didn't just burn her skin, it burned into her legacy. The movie's ending was a studio war. Universal Pictures hated Scorsese's original ending. The executives wanted something hopeful, less brutal, more mainstream. Scorsese refused. He insisted the film end with Sam Rothstein's lonely voice narrating the fall of Las Vegas. The compromise came after weeks of arguments and screenings that split the studio boardroom. In the end, Scorsese won, but not without scars. One executive threatened to cut the final monologue himself. What audiences saw, the quiet collapse of the American dream, was a directorial victory earned through battle. It wasn't a happy ending, it was an honest one. That's what made Casino timeless. The studio wanted redemption. Scorsese delivered truth. The FBI actually bugged their phone calls. During filming in Las Vegas, federal agents really bugged a phone line that Scorsese's production team used. The FBI was still monitoring mob activity connected to the real-life events that inspired the movie. At one point, Scorsese joked that the agents probably knew more about his shooting schedule than his assistant did. But it wasn't paranoia. The Bureau truly had microphones planted near filming sites. They even recognized De Niro's voice during rehearsals. The overlap between fiction and surveillance became eerie. What the public didn't know was that the movie about being watched was literally made under watch. It blurred lines between cinema and investigation. So go ahead and like and subscribe because the next fact reveals how real gamblers almost destroyed the film from the inside. Real gamblers ruined multiple takes. Scorsese wanted authenticity, so he used real gamblers and dealers inside the casino scenes. But that realism came with chaos. Some refused to follow direction, others kept gambling for real money instead of acting. In one scene, extras accidentally hit a jackpot mid-take and refused to stop rolling dice. The production had to reset cameras while tempers flared. The noise, the shouting, the cigarette haze, it was Vegas unscripted. Crew members called it controlled madness. Even De Niro struggled to stay in character while chaos unfolded around him. Yet those imperfections made the film feel alive. What looked like perfectly choreographed casino energy was often genuine greed caught on film. It wasn't staged gambling, it was human nature with lights on. Scorsese's mother stole her scene. Catherine Scorsese, the director's mother, appeared as Joe Pesci's mom in one unforgettable dinner scene. Her warmth and casual chatter cut through the movie's brutality. But here's the secret, none of her lines were scripted. She improvised everything, including the line about the painting with the two dogs, and one going east and one going west. The crew laughed so hard they ruined several takes. Scorsese kept the first one. His mother's presence reminded everyone of the humanity behind the madness. That short scene gave Nicky Santoro a strange glimpse of tenderness before his inevitable fall. It wasn't planned, it was instinct. Catherine Scorsese brought the only real mercy in a world made of cruelty. De Niro researched obsessively. Robert De Niro didn't just play Sam Rothstein, he became him. He studied casino management manuals, read gambling laws, and even met with former pit bosses. He learned how to flip chips correctly and call out cheaters by sight. He logged real bets in notebooks and practiced speaking in the rhythm of a casino announcer. Every move, every glance was rehearsed like ritual. Scorsese said De Niro's dedication bordered on obsession. The realism came from his compulsive need for control. Just like Rothstein himself, what audiences didn't know was that De Niro wore a real FBI wiretap earpiece during scenes to capture authentic casino noise, not acting, immersion. The line between man and character vanished under the neon. Joe Pesci terrified the crew. Joe Pesci didn't just play violent, he was terrifying between takes. He stayed in character so deeply that extras avoided eye contact. During one break, he reportedly snapped at a crew member for bumping his chair and then apologized by saying, "Nicky made me do it." Scorsese encouraged this method intensity because it produced electric energy on screen. But some crew members requested to work on other units just to escape the tension. Sharon Stone later said, "Filming with Pesci felt like standing next to a live wire that could explode any second." The rage wasn't rehearsed, it lived in the air. What we saw on screen was danger bottled in human form, unpredictable and unforgettable. A deleted scene showed Ginger's darker end. Scorsese originally filmed a haunting alternate ending where Ginger's body is found in a sleazy motel surrounded by pills and cash. The studio forced its removal, claiming it was too disturbing. But Sharon Stone's performance in that scene was unforgettable. She whispered to herself before dying, repeating Sam's name like a broken record. Test audiences left the theater in silence. Scorsese later said it felt too cruel even for Casino. What audiences didn't realize is that he kept fragments of that footage, using flashes of it during the montage that closes Ginger's story. Her fall feels abrupt because it mirrors the scene we never saw. It wasn't about showing death, it was about erasing everything she ever was. One prop used a real corpse. During filming at an abandoned Vegas construction site, the art department rented realistic mannequins to stage a crime scene. But legend says one of those mannequins wasn't fake. Local authorities later confirmed that a medical cadaver had been accidentally delivered from a nearby university. When the mistake was discovered, the crew shut down production for half a day. Scorsese never confirmed the rumor, but crew members swore the smell was real. Whether myth or truth, the story spread through Vegas like wildfire. It blurred the line between movie and morgue. Casino already dripped with realism, but this accident turned that realism into something grotesquely literal. Not everyone could stomach it. Not everyone wanted to. The narration style was revolutionary. Casino's dual narration broke every rule of storytelling. Scorsese let both De Niro and Pesci narrate the same events from clashing perspectives, but the shock came when Pesci's narration abruptly ended mid-sentence because his character died. No film had ever done that before. The narration didn't just explain the story, it became the story's heartbeat. Viewers subconsciously felt the violence before seeing it. The moment Pesci's voice stopped, audiences felt like witnesses to a murder. Scorsese said it was the sound of narrative dying. The choice inspired dozens of later films, from crime thrillers to prestige TV dramas. It wasn't voiceover, it was psychological architecture, sound design as storytelling weapon. The movie was secretly recreated in real life. Months after Casino's release, the FBI reported that several Las Vegas pit bosses copied Rothstein's management system exactly. They ran operations, with the same double bookkeeping scams and surveillance tricks seen in the film. Life imitated art down to the smallest detail. Investigators used Casino as evidence in multiple fraud cases. Scorsese's realism had accidentally become a manual for corruption. What audiences saw as entertainment, criminals saw as instruction. The movie became both inspiration and confession, a paradox of cinema influencing crime. That's the strange power of Casino. It didn't just expose the underworld, it taught it how to evolve. Scorsese's heart attack during post-production. Few know that during Casino's grueling post-production, Martin Scorsese suffered a mild heart attack. He had been editing for days without rest, obsessing over the film's rhythm and sound. Friends urged him to slow down, but he refused until his body gave out. He recovered quickly and returned to the editing room within a week. That collapse changed him. He said afterward that Casino drained the last of his obsession with violence. It marked the end of an era, his final true gangster epic until years later with The Irishman. Casino nearly killed its creator, but it also resurrected him. Bonus fact: the hidden symbol nobody noticed. In every major scene where betrayal unfolds, a single red object appears: a lamp, a dress, a roulette number. Scorsese used red as a warning pulse of danger and doom. It starts as temptation, ends as blood. Viewers rarely catch it consciously, but the color rhythm tells the story of descent. Red follows Rothstein like fate, from the casino floor to Ginger's coffin-like bed. It's the heartbeat of the film hiding in plain sight. Casino isn't about crime, it's about self-destruction disguised as success. Casino remains a neon elegy to greed, power, and ruin. It was born from truth, sculpted in danger, and polished with obsession. What audiences saw was entertainment. What Scorsese made was autopsy. If you learned something new, hit like, share, and subscribe for more hidden truths from the world behind the camera. Because in Hollywood, as in Vegas, the house always wins.